Walter Nolen. So this goes in line with another first-round pick option with Ozaraku. 6'4", 296, 32.5-inch arms. Not really long. It's funny that he's a bigger guy by 2 inches, but inch and a half shorter arms than Ozaraku. Isn't that crazy? One of the top recruits coming out of 2022. I believe he was 1 or 2, actually. Flies off the ball. Can play very, very scheme versatile. I don't think you can put him at end by any means, but if you asked me 5 years ago if I think we could put Chris Jones at end, I probably would say no to that too. So I think if you have raw pass rushing skills, we can try to exploit matchups. And I think that's what I read about him so much, was that he's a matchup exploiter. Can reposition, can react, can recover, shoots gaps like crazy, has hip swivel to him. He's twitchy, he's explosive, 85 percentile on pass rush win rate. Took on double teams routinely, almost like he was like a nose tackle, but he's not built that way. He's not 330 plus pounds. He's 296, but he's just so strong he can hold it. Low miss tackle rate. He's a great tackler. Downsides that I've read, some technique needs forming. Doesn't have a go-to pass rush move. Doesn't have a lot of counters mastered yet. He kind of relies on his bull rush. He relies on catching O-lineman off guard with how quick he is off the snap and explosive, but he does it so well that he probably hasn't had to learn a counter or another pass rush move. He'll have to do that in the NFL. But then again, if you put him next to Chris Jones, you're going to have guys with their eyes on Jones sometimes. You got this guy firing off on you, 2 guys like that. He's also a guy, if Chris Jones comes off the field, he can be your primary interior rusher. Sometimes has issues shedding the O-line and run support, probably because his arms aren't as long as the rest of his size is. Again, you can move her around. He's a high ceiling player and a high floor player, day one starter. Some of the comps I read are Milton Williams, John Franklin Myers, Sheldon Ranklins, Matabike.
Matabike and Chris Jones. If we can get any kind of Matabike out of this guy next to Chris Jones, woohoo!
Yeah. I tell you what, man, I love this pick for us. I love this pick. He's another guy. I don't know if he'll be able to fall to us or not. There's a lot of different projections that he might be a top 15 guy, which makes a lot of sense because when you do see him on film, he does make a whole lot of difference. Ole Miss's D-line was the top D-line in the country last year for the sacks and for the pressures. And this guy right here was an anchor to all of that. So there's a number of guys that actually Chiefs have looked at, and I like that up and down that line looks good. Ivy is one, and the other, I can't say his last name, but they checked him out. Presley is the guy who plays outside defensive end. But Walter Nolen, without a doubt, is the monster there. He like somebody said, he's a beast. Absolutely. Can you imagine Chris Jones beside a guy like this, them two beside each other, like absolutely being a terror on offensive linemen? Because they'll start looking at each other like, well, who do you want this time? Who you want? You pick, you choose, right? And so he's kind of a young version of a Chris Jones. And so we understand Chris is getting older, but Chris needs a little break. This guy right here, Walter Nolen, provides that. And so same thing with Jones. If Jones finishes out his contract here and that's what he wants to do, Nolen picks up that slack. When Jones, if he decides to retire here at the end of his contract, that's what he'll do. So I love it. I think this is a great pick if we're able to get him.
It's funny too, guys. Started watching D tackle tape with Deon Walker. I watched Deon Walker when Nolan was the next guy I put on, and it was like, oh my gosh. Like it jumps out to you when you see it. Like you watch certain guys and they're highlight tapes, right? Because it's the best they do. Yeah. And if they're not just like overwhelming you with glee, then something's wrong, I think. Mm-hmm. Right. And when I watched Nolen, it was like, this is what a highlight tape looks like. That's what he fires and he just sparks when he plays.
Deon Walker had a much better junior year than he did senior year.
He did, yeah. He was like, they were saying he's gonna be a top 10 pick based off last year's tape. Crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to those guys over there. I think part of it is that some of the concerns with Deion Walker is, does he want it bad enough? Is he in shape? And that's part of the reason that he's kind of fallen a little bit. He's a big guy. I mean, no doubt about it. He's an absolute monster inside of there. But if he ever takes it serious and say, look, you want to try to be the best, and he works to that point, he wants that, like one of the top 10. No doubt about it. His junior year, couldn't block him. Nobody could. This year, I think he kind of slowed down a little bit. Got a little, when you start feeling yourself somewhat, right? And you start getting comfortable, like, oh, well, shoot, I know what I'm going to be. And all of a sudden, everybody wanted a piece of it, right? Because what does that do? That propels your stock up too. So you're going against a guy who's supposed to be a top 10. When I'm coming in the game, I want a piece of that, right?
Yeah.
So
I feel like Deion Walker's a monster who doesn't always play like a monster. He's built like that, but he plays more finesse than I'd like him to at that size. I just want you to go out there and just dominate, and like I don't know. I got that sense that he's a little too finesse. When you're 6'6", 340, 350, man, I want John Henderson. That's what I want.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So,
and Nolan, where is he? Where's he slated to go? Like based on what the experts mock drafts, where they have him?
Anywhere from 20 to our pick. I mean, yeah, he can maybe sneak into the second, but if he does, someone's trading up to that first pick or second pick to get him. So, I've seen anywhere from like 15 to 32.
Yeah, Nolan. Oh yeah, he's slated probably like 10 all the way to like 20. If he gets to us, man, I'll be shocked. To be honest with you, I really would.
There's just so many good DTs in this draft. It's just all about the flavor of that team, like who they like best for their scheme, So like someone, we might like Nolan much better than a bunch of these guys, but someone might just feel that same way about Kenneth Grant, for instance, and be like, no, that's our guy. So one of these teams, I bet no one will be their guy before it gets to us, but he could get to us.
Obviously, we talked about this draft is a D tackle, D line draft. That's where the talent is in this draft. How much of, because we may see a flurry of D tackles go in the first round and the second round, probably more than we have in especially the last few years. We haven't seen D tackles really going in that much. A lot of them, at least. How much of that is the talent of this draft versus people are trying to follow the Philadelphia Eagles blueprint? Because I feel like I see it all the time when we talk about online. Everyone's talking about the D tackles. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, copying the Eagles blueprint, copying the Eagles blueprint." I'm like, I don't know that it's always been important to have a stout defensive front. That's not a Philadelphia Eagles thing, but everyone's kind of saying that's the Eagles model, and teams are trying to follow that model. I just think that's where the talent is in this draft.
Well, they were just able to see it, against us. What the Eagles have been able to put together for the past few years. How many times have we been asked for another defensive tackle? We've been asked for that for the past 3 or 4 years.
Since we started the show.
Right, since we started the show, at least, by saying there's needs somebody else besides Chris. And what we've seen is year after year after year after year, the defensive tackle's been going other places, Marcus, and we haven't been getting them. And I'm just like, daggone, what are we doing? What are we waiting on? It's not like they don't know it. But like you said, they want to still run their stuff. There's certain things they want to be able to do. And so it kind of, when you do win, you're like, okay, well, we got away with it this year. We got away. Well, shoot, how many times you going to keep getting away with it until all of a sudden they do hit you in the mouth like we did? We got smacked, okay, against a great defensive line. And so, they just took advantage of it. So we ain't following Philly's blueprint. You always needed great defensive tackles. Always in defensive ends. I mean, that's what you do is you want to generate pass rush and you want to stop the run. So, we ain't copying nobody, man. That should be the standard.
Yeah. That's what I've seen online. Everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, all the teams in this year's draft are going to try to follow the Philadelphia model." It's like, I mean,
that's as dumb as people saying people are trying to copy the Kansas City model of finding a franchise quarterback on a cheap contract for 5 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, that's that. It's called the winning model is what it's called.
Right.
Just the two different ways to win. You got a franchise quarterback and a stout defensive line.
Yeah.
Build through the trenches. is what they've done and what most winning programs have done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.